Welcome back to the deep dive. You know, if you're a new official, you know that exact moment. The whistle blows, you signal the infraction, a trip, a hold, something obvious.
Right.
You've called the penalty, and you think, okay, that's the easy part. But the real test, the thing that separates a prepared referee from someone who's just starting out, is everything that happens after that call.
Oh, absolutely. The administration of it.
Yeah, the clock management, figuring out which player sits for how long, and, the big one, how many players the team actually loses on the ice. Calling the foul is maybe half the battle. So, okay, let's really unpack this.
Let's do.
Our mission today is to get a complete handle on Rule 402. This is really the foundation for how penalties are managed under the new USA Hockey 2025-29 rulebook. It's vital. We're doing a deep dive into the 6 big time-based penalties: minor, bench minor, major, misconduct, game misconduct, and match-in, and really mapping out the exact effect each one has.
On the clock and on the ice.
Exactly. This is the difference between a smooth game and one where, the coaches are yelling, the scorekeeper's confused about every decision you make.
And if you're going to take just one thing away from our talk today, let it be this. It's the most fundamental principle for any official. Penalty enforcement is mechanical, not discretionary.
Mechanical. I like that.
You're not judging intent or emotion at this point. Your job is not to pick the penalty time or decide if a player gets out early. You are a robot. You apply the exact rules for the time served, the manpower reduction, and any early termination. No deviation. It's all dictated strictly by Rule 402. It just demands precision.
Precision. Okay, well, precision starts with the call you're going to make more than any other, the minor penalty. Most of us just think, 2 minutes in the box, end of story.
Right.
But this is where it gets really interesting, especially under this new rule cycle. The length of a minor penalty isn't always 2 minutes. It actually changes depending on the period length of the game you're officiating.
This is a huge, huge detail for novice officials to get right away. There are 2 key time standards now for a minor penalty, and they're tied directly to the period clock.
Okay, so what are they?
Well, if you're working a game with longer periods, so think 20-minute or 17-minute periods, then yes, the minor penalty is 2 minutes. That's the standard everyone knows.
But this is the big but. If you're officiating a youth game or, a lower level game with shorter periods, say 15 minutes, 12 minutes, even 10-minute periods, that same minor penalty is actually shorter. It's 1 minute and 30 seconds.
Exactly, 1:30.
So what's the logic there? Why have that flexibility? It almost feels like it makes our job harder.
Well, the idea is to keep things proportional. 1:30 in a 12-minute period is, roughly the same percentage of game time as 2 minutes is in a 20-minute period.
Ah, so it keeps the pressure of the shorthanded situation relative to the total game.
That's it. So you absolutely have to know the period length before that first puck even drops.
And what about the bench minor? How does that fit in?
It's treated almost exactly the same. Same duration, 2 minutes or 1:30 depending on the period, and it results in shorthanded play, unless it's coincidental, which we'll get to. The only real difference is administrative. Meaning, since the foul was committed by the bench or you couldn't identify the player, the coach has to designate a player who was on the ice at the time to go serve it.
Got it. Okay, now for the part that I think creates the most chaos in real time, the washout, the early termination rule.
Crucially, yes. This is the mechanism in Rule 402 that can bring that minor or a bench minor penalty to an immediate end. If the team with the power play scores a goal, the penalty terminates. It's over.
That's the power play golden ticket.
Right. And as the official, you have to be ready to signal that change instantly. Make sure the clock operator zeroes out that penalty.
So let's paint a picture. Team A is shorthanded. There's, say, 1:45 left on their minor penalty. Team B scores.
Team A is immediately back to full strength. The player comes out of the box. But, and this is the critical limitation you have to burn into your brain, this washout, this early termination, applies only to minor and bench minor penalties.
Only those 2.
If a player is serving a major penalty and the other team scores 5 goals, that player stays right where they are.
That's a perfect transition, actually. Let's talk about those non-negotiable penalties, the ones that don't wash out. So the major penalty. Unlike a minor is fixed. It is always 5 minutes, full stop.
Right.
When you call a major, you're dealing with a much more severe infraction. And because of that, the rulebook is very clear on 2 points that are completely different from a minor. First, that 5-minute duration is never reduced, even if you're working a game with 10-minute periods.
The gravity of the foul just demands that full 5-minute shorthanded situation.
And second, and this is where I think people get tripped up sometimes, a major is never terminated early because of a goal.
Never. If that penalty is on the board, it stays on the board for the full 5.
So the team plays shorthanded for 5 full minutes no matter what.
Precisely. Now, let's pivot a little bit. Away from penalties dealing with, heavy physical contact to ones that are more about behavior. The misconduct penalty. What's so fascinating here is how it impacts the team's strength on the ice compared to a major.
Right, because a player gets a misconduct, they're gone for 10 minutes, which sounds really severe, but the team, they don't play shorthanded. That feels a bit counterintuitive.
It does, but you have to remember the purpose. A misconduct is for, disruptive behavior, disrespect. It's not about creating a physical disadvantage. So it's 10 minutes, though some affiliates can reduce it for shorter games. But the key is it does not affect on-ice strength.
So a substitute just jumps on the ice immediately.
Immediately. The team stays at full strength. The administrative quirk you have to remember from misconducts, though, is when that player actually gets to come back.
Ah, right. It's not when the clock hits 0.
No. They have to stay in the penalty box until the next stoppage of play after their time expires. So if the clock hits 0 while the puck is live, they can't just jump out. They have to wait for your whistle.
And if they do jump out early,
then you've got a too many men on the ice situation. So you have to keep an eye on them. It's a key detail to make sure that penalty time is fully served without disrupting live play.
Okay, so now we're moving into the penalties that turn us from referees into paper pushers, the really severe ones, game misconduct and match penalties.
This is where your administrative duties just ramp up significantly. Let's start with the game misconduct. This is a complete removal. The player or coach is gone for the rest of the game. And this one absolutely requires mandatory reporting. You're writing that up after the game.
What's the on-ice manpower effect?
Usually it's straightforward. If you assess a game misconduct by itself, a substitute comes on and the team is not shorthanded. But if it's combined with another time penalty, like a 5-minute major for fighting, then the time penalty is served normally by a substitute.
So you'd put 5 minutes on the clock, the offending player is ejected, and another player sits that 5 for them.
Exactly.
Then we get to the top of the ladder, the match penalty, the most serious call you can make.
It is. A match penalty means immediate removal from the game, and it comes with automatic consequences.
2 things happen right away, right?
That's right. First, a 5-minute penalty is automatically put on the clock. It's like an instant, non-washable, major penalty that the substitute has to serve. And second, it triggers a mandatory report and an automatic disciplinary review by the league or affiliate. Your game sheet just became a critical piece of evidence.
And there's a really important modern rule that every official needs to know cold now, Rule 601 E.3.
Yeah.
It removes all your discretion.
Right. Any use of hateful or discriminatory language is an automatic match penalty. There's no judgment call there. You hear it, you call it.
That one rule really shows the weight of this call. It's not just a physical foul, it's an act that the sport deems reprehensible. So it's instant removal, 5 on the clock, and a whole lot of paperwork for you after the game.
It's the ultimate escalation of your duty. You go from clock manager to report writer in a split second. And that actually brings us to probably the biggest complication for new officials. What happens when players from both teams get penalties at the same time?
Coincidental penalties. This is where you have to be so sharp to manage on-ice strength correctly.
Exactly. You don't want to accidentally create a power play that shouldn't exist.
So let's think of it like balancing a scale. When an equal number of time penalties, say a minor on each team or a major on each team, are called at the same stoppage, they're considered coincidental. They balance each other out.
Right. And 2 critical things happen. 1, the penalty time is still recorded, and those players have to go to the box and serve the time. They have to sit.
But, and this is the magic part, an immediate substitution happens, and there is no manpower reduction on the ice. The teams stay at equal strength.
Exactly. The system is designed so that if 2 players get into it and commit the same foul, they both go to the box, but the game continues 5 on 5. We've punished the players without creating a power play.
So when does that balance get broken?
It gets broken when the penalties are unequal. So if Team A gets a minor and another minor, and Team B only gets 1 minor, well, The scale is tipped. One minor on Team A cancels out the minor on Team B, but that extra non-coincidental minor on Team A, that one has to be served shorthanded.
So you, as the official, you do the math in your head. You apply the offset first, see who has the leftover penalty time, and that's what goes up in the clock as a shorthanded situation.
You have to do that calculation on the fly. And there's one more administrative thing to remember with coincidental minor penalties. Because the teams are at full strength, the players don't get to leave the box the second their time expires.
Oh, this one catches everyone off guard.
Yeah.
Scorekeepers, new officials, everyone.
Everyone. They have to wait until the first stoppage of play after their penalty expires. So their time might be up at the 12:00 mark, but if the play goes on for another 30 seconds, they sit for that extra 30 seconds until you blow the whistle.
Again, it's just mechanical. It's written that way to maintain the flow of the game.
Right.
You know, this whole deep dive, it really just boils down to precision. Whether it's the variable minor penalty or the complex math of coincidentals, knowing these rules by the book lets you do your job mechanically, like you said, and just manage the game fairly.
Absolutely. Consistency is your best friend on the ice. You have to apply the correct time, the correct manpower effect, and the correct termination rules exactly as they're written. There is no room to interpret the duration or the effect of a penalty once you've decided to call it.
So to wrap this up, here's a final provocative thought for you, our listener, to chew on. As you go back and review Rule 402, imagine this scenario. You signal a delayed major penalty on Team a bad cross-check. But before you can stop play, while that major is still delayed, another player on Team A commits a minor for holding the stick. The whistle finally blows, you assess both penalties. Which penalty does the clock start counting down first? And why is that order so incredibly critical for the team's on-ice strength?
That prioritization is everything. And if you dig into Rule 402E, you'll find the answer. When you have multiple penalties that are not coincidental, the major or match penalty must be served first. That means Team A starts their shorthanded situation with the 5-minute major. The minor penalty waits. That order determines whether the team is shorthanded for 5 minutes or potential 7, and it dictates exactly when they get back to full strength. Think about that interaction and how vital getting that priority right is for managing the game.